Let's go over VA cheat codes, which I believe every active duty service member will benefit from this education. This is Nathan. I'm a mortgage lender and real estate investor. This is VA cheat codes part 1. Let's jump right into it. So why is this so important? I think without having the right education, it's almost like you're going to the furniture store and you're flying blind. Like if you went to IKEA and you open up a box and you didn't have the instructions, I know I would get frustrated and just not even build it at all. On the flip side, when you have the right education, you're gonna have the most context and be able to take the next step with clarity. It's almost like having a GPS to kind of help guide you through the process. And I actually want to tell you a very funny story where we were creating these cheat codes and we were throwing an event and we had somebody drop off the tables as well as the chairs, and that person was actually about to leave the military. Her name is Sylvia. We actually went over this information with her and she gave us these wise words of wisdom, which was, I'm using the government's money to make me money. What I saw in her was she understood the difference of having resources versus being resourceful. So talking about resourcefulness, the first thing I want to talk about is you can actually use your VA loan multiple times. So I'll give you an example that's actually very common, right? So you can actually buy a home in San Diego where you're serving your 3-year billet, and then you PCS to Norfolk, Virginia, and you can actually buy a home there using your VA loan as well. And then when you get out of the military, you can go back to your hometown and buy your dream home. And that leads me to the next one where the VA loan actually has no max purchase price. So you can actually go up to 5 million, 10 million. Obviously you have to qualify, but you can also buy your dream home at your hometown. Let's say it's $5 million. You can use your VA loan in that situation as well. The next VA cheat code is if your ETS date is within 12 months. So again, go look at your LES and look at that ETS date, right? If it's less than 12 months, you generally need to have a plan to use your VA loan. So I would highly recommend if you have less than 12 months or just about to enter that 12 months, reach out to a mortgage lender or somebody to help build out a plan for you. So that way you can really optimize your VA loan. Let's go over what's possible with the VA loan. So I'll give you 3 different scenarios that are actually very common, right? So if you're married with a VA and a VA, I'm married to another military member, you can use a VA loan. If I'm unmarried with a VA and a VA, you can actually use your VA loan in that situation too. The other common example is if I have a VA loan and I'm an active duty service member, can I use it with maybe a family member? Technically, yes, there's different stipulations where the other person has to bring in a down payment, but technically you could do it as well. And I'd say, what I hear a lot of times is you have your active duty service member and then you have another squad mate and they want to go in and buy a home together. I would highly recommend talking to a real estate lawyer before entering any type of agreement there, because you would want to figure out what's your exit strategy. Do I refinance? Do I sell? Like what if one of us PCSs and one stays here? Figure that all out. Obviously, this isn't legal advice. It's just something that you should look into. So what I just mentioned, married VA plus VA, unmarried VA plus VA, and then family and friend VA and non-VA, all of that is possible. The next section I want to talk about is something that might hit home, right? Some challenges when you're looking for housing in any city or station that you're at. What happens a lot of times is with the move, you might rack up some credit card debt, right? I see that quite a bit. Affordability is rough. And then, trying to get your BAH to cover all your rent is also tough. It was tough with some of my friends that I knew back in 2016. It's rough for some of the clients that I help serve today. So I think affordability has always been a tough question. So using the VA loan and understanding the cheat codes, tackling the credit card section is what's not commonly known is using a VA loan, you can have the sellers pay off your credit card debt, which I think is a great opportunity to own a home while also essentially consolidate some of your debt. Regarding BAH not covering your rent, what I want to do is show you a study that we actually did. I love statistics and numbers, so nerd alert here, but I actually went all the way back to 2011 and I pulled up all the BAH from 2011 to 2004, and I did an average for E3 all the way to E6 with and without dependents. On average, your BAH goes up 5% every single year. So let's say you had $1,000 BAH, the next year it would go up about 5%, just as an easy example. So understanding this concept, sometimes when you're renting or even purchasing a house, you might be purchasing a house where the mortgage is higher than your BAH right now, but 2 to 3 years from now, your BAH will increase where your mortgage, if it's a 30-year fix, will stay the same. So in this chart, we call this service pays, landlord plays. So you're essentially renting and you're paying for your landlord's leisure. So what you see on this graph is how rent goes up about about 5% every single year. Again, I'm basing this on San Diego, so in different markets, it's gonna be slightly different. So you can see rent, the first year is about $3,000 and it goes up over time, over the next 10 years, right? If you look backwards, in 2010, rent was way less compared to what it was in 2020. And guess what's gonna happen in 2030? What I'm showing you here is a mortgage payment of a $500,000 house at a 6% interest rate. You can see what is a break-even point of about 3 years. The next line that I'm sharing is what if rates were 5%? You can see how the break-even point moves from 3 years to 2 years, right? And when I say break-even point, what that means is when does it become more affordable to own a home? Generally speaking, if you're trying to buy a home and sell it within a year, not making any general major improvements, it is gonna be very difficult to have a profit on a home, just being honest, right? But if you're on that 2 to 5 year plan, generally you're gonna lean on it being more affordable to own a home. Then the last graph is 4%. You can actually see the break-even point moves even further to the left. So overall, we can do this study for different purchase prices, different interest rates, and all that good stuff. The last VA cheat code is what we call VA house hacking. Again, using your VA loan, your BAH isn't as much as your mortgage, generally speaking. I totally get that. So what we see a lot of times is active duty service members will use their VA loan to purchase a home, and then they'll rent it out to another active duty service member as a roommate. You know their BAH, so let's just say, for example, you buy a home and your mortgage is $4,000, right around there of your BAH, and then you rent it out for $2,000. So essentially you're owning a home for 50% off on the mortgage. So using that VA cheat code, it'll allow you to save more of your BAH to then go buy another home. So then you can see how this compounds over time. All right, let's go over what we talked about in this VA cheat codes part 1 video, where we talked about multiple uses, right? Where you can use your VA loan multiple times. There's also no max purchase price using the VA loan. The other thing is being mindful of your ETS date if it's within 12 months, if you're an active duty service member. And then Rubik's cubing, you know, what's possible with your VA loan. You can use it with a friend, another active duty service member, even if you're married or unmarried. The other thing is, we talked about it, we can have the sellers pay off your credit card debt if you're using a VA loan. The last one that we talked about, which I think is the most important one, which is VA house hacking, right? Renting it out to other active duty service members or another tenant, essentially, to offset your mortgage payment, so that way you can increase your savings. Anyways, that's the end of VA cheat codes part 1. I hope you find value out of this video. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'm rooting for you. This is Nathan, signing out.